time to take a stand and stop the sexualization of our children. Action for Canada has created a notice of liability to assist you. The title of this NOL is Facilitating in Exposure of Minors to Sexually Explicit Educational Resources, Activities, and/or Events. The United Nations has mandated that all member nations implement the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Resource. CSE is a learning platform that was developed within the context of a program developed by UNESCO. This so-called resource sexualizes children at the earliest ages possible, and it's no surprise that it's causing great harm to our children, as well as attacking the traditional family unit. According to Section 163.1 and Section 152 of the Criminal Code, as well as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, it's a criminal offence to sexualize and exploit children. Here at Action for Canada, we've been working to expose this evil agenda and to empower parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens to take a courageous stand. In an effort to assist you, we've created a page on our website where you will find an incredible assortment of information on this issue, including the various programs that have been introduced into our schools. Beyond the Basics is the resource used in Nova Scotia, WIN Sex Ed is used in Ontario, CSE is used in Manitoba, and SOGI 123 is used by the rest of the provinces. By introducing these programs into our educational system, our children and youth are being exposed to sexually explicit pornographic materials in the form of books, magazines, and comic strips. Our kids are also encouraged to become members of organizations that promote sexually deviant behavior and the exploitation of minors. Be sure to take advantage of this notice of liability, which will advise teachers, librarians, trustees, ministers, etc., that they will be held personally liable for exposing minors to any form of pornography or sexually explicit material, as well as any activities or organizations promoting sexual deviancy and the exploitation of minors. By using this valuable NOL, you have the ability to demand that the CSE learning resources be immediately and completely removed from libraries and the education system. That all of the books listed, including titles by the same authors, be immediately removed, and that all educational facilities, including libraries, cease and desist promotion of any and all activities, including performers and clubs that exploit our innocent, impressionable, and vulnerable children and youth. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. Here are some powerful actions you can take to protect our youth, no matter your age or station in life. Pull your children out of public schools and universities. Run, facilitate, join, or help with a homeschool group. Get involved in writing letters and serving notices of liability. Run for office as a school board trustee, mayor, or city councillor. Connect with an Action for Canada chapter near you. We cannot ignore this message. Our children and youth are being subjected to twisted ideologies using social justice as a means to indoctrinate and groom them, and we must protect them. Thank you for taking a stand to protect kids. If you like what we're doing at Action for Canada, please consider making a donation to support our ongoing work. And be sure to join a chapter near you. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Through his love we win the fights. Action for Canada we unite. Joining hands when foes will fight. Action for the Canada we stand tall. With love and faith we can win it all. We all up high.
Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for the Empower Hour. I'm looking forward to this evening. It's going to be a different Empower Hour. I'm going to be put on the hot seat, and the script is flipped a little, as my guest will be telling us, and the new host of the show. I am just so excited. Today, I have the honor of passing the mic to one of my dearest friends, Danielle Pistilli. I met Danielle in the fall of 2020 at one of the first rallies I attended in Vancouver, and it happened to be the day I announced that Action for Canada would be commencing legal action against the BC and federal government. From there, Danielle and I grew to be fast friends as she hosted the upcoming rallies every Saturday throughout that fall of 2020 into the winter months. And I'm talking sun, rain, snow. We showed up, tents, resources, mics ready, speakers ready. It was just an amazing season of this journey that we've been on in these past years. But nothing stopped us from proclaiming the truth and warning the masses, and we still continue today. Danielle was a driving force throughout those many months in helping us raise a significant amount of the funds needed for our constitutional challenge, which happens to be one of the only COVID cases still proceeding today. Danielle has been a steady voice in the grassroots advocacy, helping co-found and organize initiatives like Freedom Rally World and the Freedom Organization, which created community and conversation through weekly online interviews and unity-driven events. She is also the co-author in the book series, The Brave Books, and co-producer of the documentary, The Hidden Healthcare Crisis. Danielle leads with courage and deep care for others, grounded in her faith, the support of her family, and guided by a belief that advocacy is generational work. We must work together to pass this on to the next generation. We have to pass on the baton. I trust her, I respect her, and I am grateful to call her my friend. Please join me in welcoming Danielle Pistilli, who will be, as I say, hosting the Empower Hour tonight as we flip the script and I become the guest. Welcome, Danielle.
Well, welcome, Tanya. Thank you for having me, and thank you for trusting me to be able to do this with you today, Tanya. I've been looking forward to this, and I've thought about this for a long time, where I wanted to have people see you in a light that only very few of us ever get to see. And I know the weight that's on your shoulders with all the work that you do, and so I really wanted to be able to encapsulate, some of those precious moments that you and I have had together that I think others need to see as well.
Well, thank you for that, Danielle. It does feel strange as you and I were preparing for the show tonight. It's a little unnerving because of the position that I've been on always coming on to the Empower Hour, bringing on guests and hammering home, how can we educate people? How can we mobilize them? But there is, things for our members to know and those who have become part of the Action for Canada family. So I'm happy to move forward and have this conversation tonight.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think I'm going to start with, I think, was it last year or was it the year before that
Last year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there was a little speech that I did. You had me come on to do some fundraising for you. And I was reading back and reflecting on that. And I thought, it's so poignant even still to this day. And so if you would allow me, I would just like to I want to reiterate that piece again. So on behalf of so many people across this nation, I want to take a moment to thank God for blessing our country with an extraordinary woman that I have the privilege of calling my friend, and that is the unstoppable Tanya Gaw. If there's one word that comes to mind when I think of Tanya and Action for Canada, it's hope. Let me take you back to a gray afternoon in September 2020 when Tanya stepped onto the stage at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and alone but searching for connection in the midst of the world turned upside down. Tanya's hands were trembling and her speech paper slipped to the ground, and you could have heard a pin drop as she boldly declared, "I would like to thank God and God alone for the ground that I'm standing on." Her words carried a gravity that ignited so much excitement when she announced that she would be taking on the monumental task of holding our government accountable legally for the lies, division, and propaganda that they had unleashed upon us. What happened next remains to be one of the most inspiring moments I've ever witnessed still in my life, still to this day. After Tanya's announcement, a single person stepped onto the stage holding up a $100 bill as an act of support for her vision. That simple yet powerful gesture sparked an incredible response from what seemed to be a never-ending sea of people that came forward offering everything from spare change to $100 bills. This incredible moment of collective action ignited a glimmer of hope that spread like wildfire. It was a turning point, reminding all of us of the immense power we have when we come together for a common cause. Thanks to Tanya's bravery and guidance, this shared experience literally transformed feelings of helplessness to empowerment. She showed us that together we are so much more powerful than the 1% that have been trying to rule over us. I think it's safe to say that Tanya quickly became a beacon of light during a time of darkness and uncertainty for so many of us. But Tanya's journey didn't end or even just begin in 2020. Long before that pivotal moment, she was already fiercely advocating, shining a light on all the erosion of parental rights and speaking out about the concerning changes taking place in schools and communities, and as well as the immigration issues that have been plaguing our country. Tanya has never been afraid to speak out about uncomfortable conversations that most people avoid, as she has consistently been ahead of the curve, warning us of significant issues that threaten the fabric of our nation. Tanya's work has since progressed to new bold legal actions, and her lawsuit regarding all of the mandates is one of the few still active in the courts today. Tanya has her thumb on the pulse of what is happening all over this country, acting as the eyes and the ears and the voice of so many of us who would otherwise remain unaware, and has inspired countless people to get involved in advocacy work, myself included. Because of Tanya's fearless leadership, thousands have been motivated to contribute their time, expertise, and connections and financial support. Without this collective effort, tackling these monumental issues would be impossible. Additionally, there is a tight and mighty core team that has been volunteering their time and talents to support Action for Canada and to do all that they can to stand on the front lines and say, "Not on my watch." Much like Gideon's army, it is not the size of the group that determines the success, but the strength, courage, and commitment of the people involved. And as life regains some normalcy, we must not lose sight of the importance of staying engaged, as the battles that Action for Canada takes on comes with significant costs, financial, emotional, and logistical. From technical support and website maintenance to massive legal fees, mail platforms, and print materials, these efforts require all of us to share the burden. We cannot leave the responsibility to just one person or a small team. If we expect change, we must be active participants in creating it. Tanya, your work and unwavering determination inspire all of us. I know this hasn't been easy. It's been a long road, but your courage, dedication have brought so much hope to so many. And I want you to know how profoundly grateful many of us are that you continue to say, "Yes, God," to take on all that you do to defend faith, family, and freedom. And to everyone here tonight, I urge you to reflect on the importance of staying involved. Let's not forget the struggles that we've endured, the lessons we've learned, and the progress that we've made. As we approach the holiday season, a time of generosity and reflection, I ask of all of you to consider, what can you do to support Action for Canada? Whether it's through volunteering your time, offering your talents, or donating your treasures, or simply sharing this message, your contribution matters. And as a wise man, David Lindsay, once taught me, advocacy is a generational task. What you do today, make no mistake, your children and grandchildren are taking notice. Involve them in what you are doing. Talk about it at the dinner table, because every donation made, every moment volunteered, and every effort you give is not just a contribution. It's a lesson to the generations that follow. We're not just fighting battles. We're building legacy of courage and unity that will echo long after us. The change that we all long for begins with each of us choosing to act. Tanya, thank you for being a beacon of light and hope, and reminding us of what it means to stand firm in the face of adversity. Because of you, we are reminded that even the smallest acts of courage can spark a fire of hope, and together we can create a future where there's truth, freedom, and faith will prevail. So tonight, let's reignite the passion and determination that brought us together in the first place and ensure that 2026 is a year of renewed action, strength, and purpose. And I'd like to start with that wave of support by offering the first $100 again.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that that will encourage others to step up and to do the same. And to Tanya, the core team, and to all of the Action for Canada volunteers, keep up the good fight. This country needs you more than ever. You are an inspiration to those around you, and what you do is highly contagious in a good way. Do not ever underestimate the impact of every little thing that you do. Thank you for making this world a better place. It does not go unnoticed. So I was reading that and I just thought, it needed to be read again. I know that we'll talk about some of these things a little bit further on when I'm asking you some questions. But before we do, I'm hoping, Tanya, that you won't mind maybe taking us through your year-end review that you put together for 2025. I know you've been working on many different things, so why don't we start with that?
Okay, yeah, and thank you, Danielle. I'm a little bit emotional right now. So I just want to thank you genuinely for that tribute to myself and the team. As you know, it's not just I may be the face of Action for Canada and sometimes that driving force, but this team behind me, I have not been able to do it without their work and with support from beautiful, wonderful people like you. So yeah, I think that would be great. I'm looking forward to the Q&A time, but just in case anybody is happening to join us that is not familiar with Action for Canada, I'm going to start with just a couple of little updates and share my screen, and then I will turn to the 2025 year in review, which I am excited to share with you. So just a moment. I'm hoping that I got that right. How are we looking? Are we sharing okay, Trenzio? Okay, super. Thank you. All right, so many of you know that I've mentioned that this is a spiritual battle of epic proportions that we're going through. The government did commence war against Canadians, and in order to really destroy Canada, they need to destroy the foundation of this nation, which is founded on Judeo-Christian biblical principles. And over the years, as I've mentioned, God called on me years ago, back in, I believe, 2015. I wish I had written down the date, and it was like an audible voice, and he said, I want you to proclaim Canada as a Christian nation. And back then I'm thinking, 10 years ago, well, we are a Christian nation. They're trying to call us secular and other things, but now we are seeing, more than ever why that's important, even to people who are atheists or agnostic. They won't have these same freedoms in other countries or under a communist socialist regime. And even those people are saying, I'm not a Christian, but I certainly support the principles that Action for Canada, is talking about and what formed this nation. They see the advantage of what our fathers of Confederation gifted us with. So about, I want to say 6 months ago or so, at the beginning of the year, we heard that a committee, the financial committee last December, had snuck in that they were going to remove charitable status for churches. It was supposed to be in the budget, but November 4th, the budget came. And because of all of the backlash, the letters that were written, the government knew that there's a lot of support for Christianity in this nation, and they decided not to move forward at this time with it. So I've just launched this on Sunday night. Monday, you would have received it if you've signed up for Action for Canada emails. And now it's Defend Our Churches Round 2. Because, these hate speech bills that have been going through the legislature that they've been talking about that are supposed to quell hate speech, but really it is to censor morality. It is to censor anything that opposes the radical ideologies that they've been trying to shove down our throats for the last decade. And so we're just continuing to say, no, we're standing on the front line. So Action for Canada sends out these types of emails. We just give you a bit of an idea of what the action is about, and then we explain more in the actual letter that will go to the elected officials. So it takes less than 5 minutes. You would copy and paste this email, and then you would send send it to the email addresses that we actually provide you. It's very, very easy. It's very, very effective. I've heard that since we commenced this action on Monday morning, that people are, Sean Fraser has already put together a template letter that is being emailed in response. So they are hearing our voices, and wouldn't it be amazing if 1 million people took action? I mean, that is a powerful message to these tyrants that we are not going to give up our freedoms. One of the reasons they say they're wanting to put forward this hate speech and going after so-called religions is because the Muslims are out in the street and they are using their religious doctrine to spew hate towards Jews in Canada and just bringing a foreign war here that has no business. Islam is not a religion. It doesn't qualify under our protections. And so they're trying to throw Christianity and our foundation out with the bathwater. I don't care if we offend these people. They're certainly not worried about offending us, and they are here to take over. And so we have got to fiercely defend Canada as a Christian nation. I have provided a PDF. You can click on it right here. And it's an actual page. The PDF is here that you can click on. It will look like this, and it breaks down all of the evidence and the history of why we are a Christian nation and how we can qualify that. And by the government coming in and trying to pass Bill C-9, they are in violation of everything we stand for. It would be a Supreme Court challenge, and we would just overturn this. In fact, I provide, thanks to David Lindsay, multiple Supreme Court rulings also validating that we are a Christian nation. This week, we are also starting to commence some actions. We'll go more full on in the new year with this, but all these Palestinian flags are being raised in cities across the country. It is completely against everything that we stand for. These people do not have the freedom to come and use our laws and our human rights codes to bring their hate, onto our land. And so we are calling for the end of the weaponization of the flagpole, whether it's radical LGBTQ ideologies or these foreign ideologies that are coming in here and trying to disrupt and bring chaos. And Alberta, because of the amount of people rising up in Alberta, Danielle Smith at the UCP AGM this last weekend actually put a ban on all flags other than municipal, provincial, and federal. So progress is being made. Your voice matters. That's why Action for Canada is here, to initiate the call to action campaigns. Now, last year was the first year I did an Action for Canada 2024 year in review, and I thought, boy, I need to do that again. So just a few minutes. This is going to be going out in the email next week, and I would just highly recommend that you would, review the page. It would probably take all of 5 or 10 minutes if you want to just skim through it. It should give you a great deal of encouragement, and then I hope it would motivate you to support Action for Canada in sharing our information, getting it out on social media. We are still being, I had a post on Facebook the other day, and it was the interview I did with Maxime Bernier. It had 1,000 views within, I think, 24 hours. I go to look on it yesterday, and all of those views are gone. So Facebook is still censoring, Twitter is censoring, and so the only way we can do this is by the one-on-one. Even our email is being censored, but maybe your email isn't being censored, and you can share it with your friends. So please help us in whatever way you can. And just to be very, very encouraged by the advancements that we're making. I give a little message to our donors, because for all of you that have become monthly supporters, thank you. You help us budget. You help us, to think forward of what we will be able to afford to do. Our team is, the majority of everyone is working around the clock, and it's done by volunteer hours. And so we're not looking at what we can do this weekend. I don't go out to dinners. I don't, have the opportunity to get together with my friends. This is full on war, and we've got to get that mindset in order to move forward. So I want to start by highlighting the A4C chapter leaders. This is also what you help fund nationwide. This is a look at the map, and all those beautiful little dots are chapters nationwide, and I just give them a huge shout out. We do Empower Hours every week. It's to educate and mobilize citizens. We give an alert that our Gmail tell us whatever email system you have are blocking Action for Canada's emails, and we keep asking that you will reach out to whatever your email service provider is and demand that they stop blocking your emails. It's against the law. They can't sit at the bottom of my driveway and say, oh, you can't deliver mail to this address. And there is absolutely no way they should be interfering with the delivery of your service either. Success stories, of course, this year was the huge win in Alberta, where a year ago we started lobbying government. We gave them a 3-inch binder to show the measurable harms to children, including through SOGI 123, which we will persist to get removed from the education system. It had the images of the books. Thank goodness Minister Nicolaides, he took the information seriously, and by the spring they were removing these books and literally calling them what they are: sexually explicit and pornographic books. So that's a huge win. I consider that it was an important win with the churches as well to maintain charitable status, and this is the power of the people when we come together and we unite. Just a legal action updates. I finally heard, in case you hadn't heard my previous update, the legal action involving Tyson Cook, aka Drag Queen Frida Wales, the guy that likes to do videos where he's chopping people up, eating them, and feeding them to his potbelly pig, and happens to be a teacher's assistant in the Kelowna School District, decided to come after Action for Canada for defamation. But everything we reported on was off his own website. So basically, he defamed himself. He was proud of it when he posted this information. And all of a sudden, when we're talking about this information that he posted, he's not so happy about it. But we put forward a SLAP application in September. We were hoping to be in court the week of December 8th. But due to lawyers' schedules, it will be the week of June 29th, 2026. Our legal action with Rocco, we have to wait again for December 12th to come in order to book a date for February. It is an absolute joke, the court system, but we are pursuing it at every opportunity we can get to be before the courts and continue to have our case moving forward. Thank you again for your donations because they allow us to travel and to get the word out. Kim and I took a trip to Washington, D.C. at the end of September and the beginning of October, and we joined the international partners that I'd been working with since the beginning of the year to advocate for our children, to protect them and parental rights by opposing the World Health Organization's comprehensive sexuality agenda, which is to sexualize children from the earliest age possible. This is a battle that I've been in personally since 2016, fighting for our children, and I will not stop until this is eradicated from the education system, from our social media platforms. This is demonic, it's evil, it is leading to our children being sterilized and to being physically, medically mutilated, and that no time in history would we be able to sit back and allow this to happen to our children. So we need more ferocious parents and citizens rising up in support of us as we work and lobby government in the United States. We had tremendous feedback from them walking through the halls of Congress and the Senate down there and going into congressmen and women's offices and senators' offices. That work is continuing, and I'm in touch, of course, with Rhonda and Audrey from the United States as they continue to pursue the investigation of Alfred Kinsey. So your support allows us to attend these events. Plus, in Canada, our chapter leaders are, normally we have a church that supports us, and we go to conventions and events to get also the word out and help educate more people. We don't want to show up at a convention and just, report on all the horrible things that are happening in Canada. We're one of the only organizations that come with clear solutions and strategy. And again, thank you for your support. We are calling out against UNDRIP and drip it in British Columbia and Canada-wide. Our special guest comes to educate us with the truth and the facts. So many people have been indoctrinated and conditioned to believe the lies that are coming out from the socialist agenda. We can't call them liberals. We can't call them the NDP. We can't call them the Green Party, or right now the Bloc Québécois, because they're all working strategically together. Even the Conservative Party is facilitating this cabal on many levels, and we are just resetting the truth. The truth, we're proclaiming it, and it's going to become the truth again. So don't take at face value what CBC News, or if you still listen to them, or Global News is telling you. And please stop rejecting the information that Action for Canada is putting out, because we always base it on well-researched information. And so we just encourage you to read and research the pages that we've provided with all of this truth and evidence. So we are coming out definitely against Islam, hard and fast. I have an e-petition ready to go to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. We want to see a full stop on mass immigration, a full moratorium. And thank goodness, as we lobby government and leaders like Maxime Bernier, who went from, yeah, you know what, we'll bring 150,000 immigrants in, to as well understanding the need to put a moratorium in place at least for a decade, so we can clean up Canada's immigration system, deport all of these people who are coming in and robbing Canadians blind of their hard-earned tax dollars, these freeloaders. It's got to stop, and we've got to be able to encourage our own people to have children and raise families and to be able to afford a home. It's Canada first, it's Canadians first, and it's going to be based on Christian principles. We are, as always, protecting our children. We're going after the 15-minute cities. We can't do any of this without our prayer team, who meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want to get connected and be on the prayer team, go to our resource page, look up church resources, and join the prayer team. As I have mentioned, Canada's Christian nation. If I could ask so boldly that you would take this and that you would send it to every mayor and city council, that you would send it to your school board trustees and superintendents, that you would send it to your MLAs and MPPs and your MPs. And I don't care if they're foreigners who have infiltrated our government or not, they are duty bound, and they've taken an oath to uphold the fact that we are a Christian nation. And it's about time we start reminding them of that. Just a quick overview of the 2025 urgent calls to action. This is a fraction of them, purely because we haven't had enough people to take the actions that we're sending out into communities and post them on the website. But we're working towards that now. And this page could be double or triple that if we actually put all the work that's going on in the background for Canadians and in your communities. And I'm going to put a plug in. This is why it's so important. We need more chapter leaders within your community, because the work we're doing is having a measurable effect. It's really, really effective, and we're very proud of that. We provide homeschool information on how we're that call to, parents, get your kids out of the education system. As Alex Newman says, 911, the schools are on fire. And just the parental rights resources we have. All of this information is here for you. I hope many of you have benefited from Action for Canada, having guests on over the years, encouraging you to invest in silver and gold, but especially silver. It is going through the roof right now. It's up to over $80, and many people with Action for Canada purchased at high 28s or in the $32 range when we first got started. And so we really want to make sure that Canadians are set, that when the banks collapse or the Canadian dollar, that you will be able to provide and take care of your family. And if you've really, really benefited from this, we wouldn't mind a little bit of an extra special gift at the end of this year. All right, there's, like I say, review the page. It's just amazing work that Action for Canada is doing. And I'm so pleased to be able to share that with you tonight, and look forward to sending this resource out to you next week. So Danielle, back to you. I'm on the hot seat. Here we go.
Unmute. There we are. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, but every time I hear you go through that, I'm just like, wow, like,
Yeah.
all of the projects that you've got on the go, you are one of the most fierce, hardworking women I know, Tanya, but I know that this sacrifice that you've made over the years has been, it hasn't all been, it's not all ups, right? There's a lot of walls that you hit and whatnot. And I've seen you through some difficult times when there's been hurt or sadness, or there's been days when you felt like you haven't been able to just carry on sometimes. And so, it's been almost 6 years now. But before we get to some of the deeper stuff, I kind of realized that there's a side of Tanya that I don't actually know very well. It's the pre-COVID Tanya. And, so many of us are bored with superficial conversations that, they're only scratched the surface. But again, before we take that deeper dive, I want to know a little bit about the heart of the person, that's behind the activism. So Tanya, who were you before all of the activism? And, what was little girl Tanya like?
Oh, just a very, very different person than I am today. I think, like many people, in our childlike characters as we grow, I was very different from my sister, who is an extrovert and very outgoing, and so I felt like quite often a shadow, and I can feel that way still today. I know that may seem odd because of the position that I hold at Action for Canada, but I think that it served me well now that I consider where I am. But I was very shy. I was a peacemaker. I hated strife and injustices. I was even back then an advocate for the underdog. Like if there was a classmate who was not popular, I had a heart to befriend them and make them feel welcome. Um, I became a Christian when I was 12 years old. And although I had attended church with my family when I was younger, my parents didn't actually become Christians till I was 9 years old. And that really had an impact in my life. And so as when I became a Christian at 12 years old, I remember it really affecting my life. I started reading my Bible at night with my little flashlight in bed, and I became hungry for the Word of God. And it just planted these solid seeds in my life. And then during my teen years, I know it may seem weird in my teen years, but I began to be concerned for the spiritual health of our nation as foreigners were arriving and bringing their false gods. And that may seem strange, but the idols and the teachings, and it just became a defining moment that changed my life later in 2015 when God called me almost in an audible voice, I felt like, to proclaim Canada as a Christian nation. And now we see how critically important that assignment was. But just the fact that I didn't understand why I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't the people themselves. It wasn't that I didn't care for these people, but I just felt a sense that something was wrong. Something was spiritually wrong as they were coming in and opening up the temples, and our traditions they started closing church on they started opening malls on Sundays. And again, that was a hit towards that traditional upbringing that I had had and those cherished family moments. And so just society started taking chips. We've been at this for decades of breaking down what was successful for our nation.
Mhm, mhm. So we'll fast forward to say when you're 18, you mentioned like your teen years and your graduating self. What was she dreaming about? And how does it compare to where you are now? I mean, obviously we know where you are now, but what were you thinking when you were a teenager, what you were going to do when you grew up?
Well, I think what a lot of girls are thinking about back then, about getting married and having a family. And I was one of those young women that really, really wanted children and to have a family and to buy a home. And I think to provide the kind of upbringing my parents had given me, I achieved those goals. Uh, but then 10 years ago, it went beyond anything that I could possibly have imagined or even considered I would be involved in. And so I would have never imagined at 18 years old that I'd be running a national organization, for instance, and putting what God had given me as these gifts and these passions, like into real life action. And at a young mind of 18, yeah, this none of this was on my radar back then.
Mhm. So looking back now, do you think that there was any experiences that prepared you for all the things that you're taking on, like the legal battles and stuff? Is there? something that stands out that I know you said you stood up for the underdogs and stuff, but is there something more?
Yeah, okay. So I think my heart for people and justice, it was certainly a driving force, and then probably job experiences played a key role. I would probably say, for instance, my job at Costco has helped me in the strangest way. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, how it helped me with the model of forming chapters across Canada.
Mhm.
And when I have in my mind, I was the data processing manager. I became, oh, I didn't even know how to use a fax machine or photocopier when I started at Costco. It was a wonderful opportunity. They only had 3 warehouses at the time, but I was very organized. And so I used those organizational skills, and that helped me to get promoted. And so then I became the assistant traffic manager and data processing manager to the manager. And I had to write policies and procedures. And here I am, writing policies and procedures in a sense, and resources for Canadians to use, right? And to help them to stand in their rights. And so I would say that was something that was a real key role. And then the other thing that I think really helped was the hard times that I went through. And I've mentioned before that I went through, starting in my 30s, there about 20 years. It was like, it was one thing after another. There was death and loss and car accidents and surgeries. And,
Mhm.
many people, may be able to relate to those things. But also some of the rejections or whatever really toughened me up.
Mhm.
And I don't think I would have been able to manage the attacks and backlash had I not been prepared in advance somehow to keep everything in perspective. And I mean that by those things back then, they really took me out. I would be, emotional about them, of course, because you just can't even consider these things happening to you. And then now, as I go through it, I would go back and consider the source. Like, who is it that's attacking me? Like, how are they legitimate in any way? And
Mhm.
then I would check to see if, for myself as well, a recheck to see, is what I'm saying true? Is it honest? Is it helpful? What is the priority? And when I was able to evaluate the attacks and what they were saying, and I could measure that to the truth in what I was doing, it was a no-brainer. And
Mhm.
to be able to have come full circle and have that kind of maturity is definitely something that I needed to be able to run this organization effectively.
It's funny how life works that way, things that thicken your skin, leading up to this. It's that statement, built for such a time as this
Hmm.
comes to mind when you say that. And I think about, what an inspiration you were for myself and so many others to step into advocacy and the thick skin that we had to get, especially through the course of the last few years. And I realized that I am capable of so much more than what I ever would have realized. There was things that I took on that I
Hmm.
never would have imagined doing some of those things. So when you were feeling called to step into advocacy, what do you think the biggest thing was that you ever had to overcome?
Hmm.
Biggest fear?
Well, I would think that one of it was public speaking. And then the last thing that I ever wanted to do was uh, like be the owner of an organization or run it. And I remembered when I was working for Costco, again, it kind of goes back to that. I loved being like a second in command. Don't put
Mhm.
me at the helm of this ship. And so in 2019, when I was faced with you know the opportunity to start an organization, I can tell you that I was on my belly before the Lord, and I cried out to him because of course I was calling out. That was back in 2019, by the time I was getting everything registered with the government to become a not-for-profit organization. And I was calling out immigration. I was calling out this radical violent LGBTQ activists. And back then, I mean, you would go to an event and, maybe there'd be 25 of us in the building and a whole mob of them outside just filled with such vitriol and hate that, is really quite concerning. And so back then I was considering my family and my home and my welfare. And God just spoke to me and he said, no, I just really want you doing this. And that's one reason why I always say Action for Canada is God breathed, because if it was up to me, I would have said, no, thank you. I would have been the wind in the sails of somebody else. It's like, no, you do it. I had said that to a couple of people and they were like, no, we can't for this reason or that. But I just really felt the need was there. And when I showed up at your rally, actually in September of 2020, that first rally, and I was going to make this announcement, Danielle, I go back and I watch the video of me being on stage and all. It still brings me to tears when all those people came, to offer their donations. I totally wasn't expecting that, but you could see as I had my little pieces of paper there with my speech on and my hand was shaking. A piece of paper blows out of my hand and inside I'm just melting. I'm in the front of 2,000 people and I was like, oh my goodness, somebody get
Those
me
were the
out of
things that
here.
made you endearing, though, Tanya. Like that was the thing with we could all relate. It's like you feel nervous for somebody because you're just like, oh, and it just it pulled on our heartstrings. It made us
Yeah.
all. You were relatable and real, and so I think that was coming back to that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this interview with you today.
Mm.
And now you've got all of these battles on your plate. So of all of the battles that you fight, what's the one that puts the biggest fire in your belly? If you could only pick one that you had to fight, what would it
Ooh,
be?
ooh.
I know, tough
It
one. There's
it
so many.
is,
There's so many.
I've thought of this because people will say, "Oh, you take on too many issues." And I'm like, "Are you seeing what the government's doing here?" And it's not too many issues if we have a team of people in the departments who are taking responsibility for those departments. The government is certainly organized and they have the money behind them, but I say we got God on our side. We've got God behind us, and that's why we're having some tremendous wins. But I would have to say right now, the biggest battle and the biggest threat is definitely the threat that Islam poses, because that is to the safety and security of our nation. We've seen what they're doing in the UK and throughout Britain in the UK, and I have been on the front of this battle since 2018 in Canada. And I've written the report, The Rise of Islam in Canada, and provided the evidence of the threat. But here's again where we've been conditioned to think about, oh, it's a religion and those nice Muslims, and they have a right in our country for the freedom of religion. And then here it comes back to education again, that no, you don't, there is no such thing as the freedom of religion in Canada to open the door to all these false gods. It was the freedom of religion for Christianity. And at the time the charter was written, and I had Brian Peckford on the show December 2024 as the last living signatory to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to confirm, was this an open door for all of these foreign belief systems to come in and set up their ideologies here? And he was like, absolutely not. It was to keep the government out of the business of the church. And so this is a re-education that we need to do. And the very fact that Islam is not a religion, it's a way of life. It is a political military system, and their strategy, when they're telling you what they're going to do, you need to hear them. And they want world domination, and they are doing it. The Quran says that they can use taqiyya, that they can lie, and that they are using our human rights and weaponizing it to advance their agenda. And it's time to say no more. And I'm very thankful to see that the Western world is waking up. Trump is taking huge steps to absolutely shut down Islam. They see that there is no negotiating with them, and that as they infiltrate all levels of government, they are implementing Sharia law, and that's foreign law. And unless we have a government that's not being paid out by them and benefiting from them, this is the greatest risk that our nation faces right now. And then, of course, the second, but I would say it's like right here, is this fight for our children, and to make sure that of course, the battle to defend their hearts and minds. is like, we're not going to stop until we win that one as well, because they're the future. If we don't have functional, instead of all of this dysfunctional kids that are coming out with all their colored hair, overweight, not caring for themselves, showing up in pajamas to the schools, I mean, our nation is lost on that front as well, because they're the future leaders. Meanwhile, China is educating their kids so that they can come in and take over, because that's, another issue. So there's many battles, and we're trying to pick them and address them, but that is definitely a major threat to our nation.
Yeah, the kids thing for me is a big one. So with everything that you're doing now, you're obviously a huge thorn in the side of the establishment. So what kind of risk factors are involved with everything that you're doing? Are you finding that there's threats around that?
Um, I think the point is, like, when we think about the risk factor,
Mhm.
I would have to say, when it comes to it, I believe that God has called me to this mission. I know for a fact that He has, and when He calls us, He'll equip us. And that fear is a tool of the enemy. Fear is not from God. And so if I walk in the Spirit of God, I'm not having the faith the size of a mountain, like the size of a mustard seed that can move mountains. And so that's what I pray for consistently. I like, Lord, give me the faith of a mustard seed so that I can move mountains. And we are doing that. So I don't think about an action that I'm taking and thinking, what will the repercussions of this be? Obviously some things cross my mind, and we have to use wisdom as we're moving forward. And we do that by using facts. And so when we are going to put a resource or an action together, for instance, to address this threat of the Muslim Brotherhood, so we are wanting a petition to go forward and a law to go forward to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization in Canada,
Mhm.
and that's reasonable. And so if the other side, if the side that's making advancements right now, uh, has any ulterior motives, then that's where I just rely on God, that He needs to be our protector and have and to be our guard. So yeah, it's not that I don't think about those things at some times, but I don't give them enough thought to stop me from continuing to move forward. And especially this battle for our kids. If I'd given up in 2015 or 16, when we were going to these events to try to advise people about Soji 123, and they were way too afraid to offend the LGBT community. And when I compare anything to the Word of God, if the Word of God is saying that homosexuality is an abomination, that's a pretty serious statement, and that we've got to understand that when they're going to do this en masse in our schools and then indoctrinate children into these ideologies and twist their minds around and put thoughts in there at grade 5, 6, or age 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's not right. What adults do is their business. And just like I don't want to hear what a heterosexual couple is sexually doing in their bedroom or anywhere else, I don't want to hear about what gays or lesbians or trans are doing. It certainly shouldn't be in our school system. And so we have to step up ferociously and be on the front line. If we're proclaiming a truth, then we've got to stand by that and not really fear the consequences, because they will come. And they did. I got criticized. I got attacked. I have a legal action against me for proclaiming the truth and speaking, up against what I feel is an act that is harming children. And now, after nearly a decade, the rest of Canada is waking up. And so it was all worth it. And it's going to be the same on every single other issue. And we have been on the front line of these issues, and we have been courageously stepping up. And because of that, whether it was regarding UNDRIP or all of the extortion and fraud with the government and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum using Indians, and I'm not talking about Hindus at this point, I'm talking about Canadian Canadian Indians, Indigenous, I
Yeah.
don't want to call them that, whatever. But they're using them as pawns in order to steal land and resources so that the globalists can control it. So why I'm standing up on their behalf too. And I've been attacked for that by Chief Ken, whatever his name was, in Port Alberni, Watts. And, I was like, I didn't care what he was saying. You can't come, into Port Alberni. It's like, yes, I can. And I'm coming. And we're going to out you and we're going to show you the backroom deals you're making. You're corrupt and you belong in jail. And so now I don't always want to proclaim we were right about everything that we've been on the front line of speaking. I'm saying we weren't wrong. And people are finally realizing that. And so I'm pleased about that. And it's a great relief.
I remember at those mid rallies, let's say like maybe a good year in, that you started speaking about, the transgenderism agenda and all of that. And I remember Alicia and I were like, can we just stick to masks and COVID? Like, can we just talk about the vaccines? Like, we're kind of territory, like not very, people were asking us like, why did you start transitioning from, talking about COVID and the masks and then going into, people thought that I was, anti-gay, and, we've had gay friends, or we've had friends that have had gay children, and it's like all of a sudden I was like a bigot, and it was like, no, I'm protecting them too. Like, you have to understand, like when there's 1 in 4 kids that identifies as something other than what they're born as, we have an issue, because that wasn't an issue when we were in high school or even in
No.
elementary school. And now, kids think they're cats and dogs and whatever else. So it's just, I remember you saying like, kids are being taught in kindergarten that they can be an animal or a thing or whatever they want to be. And it's just like, you didn't see it so much in the beginning, but then as soon as you started shedding light on it, it became very prevalent that this is a serious issue. And I think, there might be a little bit of a shift. My husband and I were both saying that there's been some construction just down the street from us here, and they've redone the sidewalks, and they didn't repaint the rainbow sidewalk. And so my husband was talking to his friend at work about that the other day, and they said they did the same thing in Mission. So I don't know if there's enough people complaining out there, but I think we should be complaining. And I know
Well,
there's been times where somebody has gone to go and complain about the rainbow flag being up at some of the local municipalities, and one single complaint has brought that flag down. So
absolutely.
you
I'm
know,
really excited that you're saying that, because I got to give a shout out to Christina as our chapter leader in Mission. And I'm telling you, she is their worst nightmare as far as the corrupt and yeah, the school board and the trustees there are just really radical as far as I'm concerned. But the mayor and city council have been receptive to her and respectful to her. And I think that she's finally been heard, and our team out there. So that's exciting. But that is the thing, right? Is that for our children, I remember kids in school, a couple of them. I think there was 2 that I knew of that ended up later ending up being gay. And the thing is though that also they had also been sexually abused as children. There was a reason for that. And so when the government was bringing in Bill C6 originally, the conversion therapy ban, that, or was it Bill C4 first? It was one or the other. And there was a re-election and they came back in and it came up as a new bill. They had to retable it as a new bill, and it would, that therapists and parents would get 5 years in prison if they didn't support their children's delusions, and they could no longer get to the root or the bottom of it. And that was giving the pedophiles also a free ride, which is exactly what the government Justin Trudeau was doing, and minimizing the consequences for criminals and pedophiles of sexual offenders. And we see how big a problem that is right now. So I knew all those things going into COVID. So how could I be quiet? Here I have a stage now of 2,000 people, and there were knee-jerk reactions from people who were offended by what I had to say, and now it's become mainstream. In fact, those people that were actually mean to me, I would say, then all of a sudden got their own group together to go and do the justice fight and the battle against Soji 123. And I thought, okay, it would have been nice if they came back and said, yeah, Tanya, we're sorry for the way we treated you, but how I look at it is good. You know what? Good luck to you. Get the message out there. Whoever you can now educate. Yeah, I support that and I accept that. But yeah, I've been through a lot. Our team has been. It's not just me, as I say. I've got a whole team behind me, and the one thing that I've always been so grateful for with them is their loyalty to Action for Canada. That sometimes they're looking at me thinking, what are you doing, Tanya? Why are you talking about this issue next, right? We just came out of, all of the backlash, say, we all of a sudden we're supporting Israel, and then people are like, oh, you support Netanyahu and all of this. And we're saying, no, according to the word of God, we support Israel. And it would be like people not supporting Canada because of Justin Trudeau or Mark Carney. And so we support the state of Israel to exist and defend themselves. And so there was the backlash. And then when we were calling out all the UNDRIP and all of this, there was the backlash. And then finally, a year later, people will understand what the battle is really about because they've been so brainwashed and conditioned by the government and the media, and that's why we need help with people sharing our information and becoming chapter leaders so that they will be advocates for change within their own community in a strong, strong voice.
Well, there's lots for people to choose from, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Pick your beast and just dive in, because I
Yeah.
think, it's like what you said, you don't focus on what the risks necessarily are, because when you get into something, I know you always talk about putting your blinders on,
Hmm.
and it's just, you get into it and you can't even think about anything else but just seeing a certain project through, and having the injustices brought to light, and making a difference in those parts. So I want to take you a little bit more on a personal level now, Tanya. And I know that you're a really private person, and so it's not necessarily the easiest thing for you. But I look at, the advocacy work that I've done over the years, and I couldn't do a lot of it without my family support and whatnot. And so, how do you balance family and home life with everything that you're doing?
Well, that's a good question. I would imagine like anybody, who's working around, the clock and still trying to have the balance of a family life, but it's difficult, Danielle. How can I, yeah, let me collect my thoughts on that and how I would like to answer it is that I think that, I'm a certain place in my life where my children are grown and I now have grandchildren and I have an elderly mom that I'm caring for. And I say caring for her, she's just turned 85. And yet I have so much support from her at the same time. She's one of my greatest cheerleaders and such a support system when I'm sending out a call to action. If I want to get a view of people who aren't familiar with the topic, I'll go, she lives downstairs. I've created a beautiful home for her down there. And I'll go, Mom. And she'll come sit next to me at the desk and she'll sit with me and I'll read to her. And then she'll ask me very specific, pointed questions where I'm like, she'll go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, these are really good questions. And it will help me to refine what it is that I'm writing. And so, anyways, yeah, so there is that balance. And, with my grandbabies right now, I would just do anything to be able to spend more time with them. It's a hardship, and I have to try to reset my priorities. And my greatest priority, and my family knows that, is fighting for this country. So it's not just me making these sacrifices. It's actually my family as well who are, supporting me in the best way that they can. But I got to tell you, sometimes I'm sitting at that desk trying to get one more action, like the call to action that I just mentioned about the churches. As soon as I heard about that, I thought, you son of a guns, you don't have the authority at the government level to do this, because it will just be a Supreme Court battle that we will go forward with if they try to criminalize scripture. Because of the way that our nation is built up, this is foundational. They can't criminalize scripture. It's all over our legislature, the parliament buildings. It's etched in our buildings. It's in our constitution, the Charter of Rights, in our anthem. Everything that we have and the structure of Canada is built on these things. And so it really motivated me, in between other things that I was juggling, just to get a look at what I'm doing, is that the team in Calgary also wanted to get an action out because they raised the Palestinian flag the other day. And it's got to be enough of these things. So then I go in and I'll edit or help and say, yeah, this is good to go. But at the same time, I was creating this action, and then Jenny, our tech person, she's there helping to create the images, and so our whole team works together. And so yeah, I worked until midnight the other night to get the call to action ready. and then for the team to put it out the next day. And sometimes sometimes I do. Sometimes I break down in tears because I'm tired. I just want to go and take my dog for a walk. And or there was something maybe I needed to go out to the store to get, and I don't have that opportunity to do those things, and I feel like I've got a chain around my ankle. But there are some things that we've got the gas pedal down, and we're achieving such good things, and we can't afford to put our foot on the brake right now. And the achievements and some of the strategy and things that I still can't quite talk about, and this is on national security level, are so terribly important to the future and for our children, for everybody in this nation, that I'm willing to make that sacrifice. But yeah, it is hard at times.
Yeah, and I know that I've talked to you at times where you're like, I just want to get my gardening done or my housework done, and
Mhm. That's
and
the
it's
midnight shift.
so what would you say that this journey has cost you personally, and what's something that people would never guess that you struggle with behind the scenes?
Well, yeah, I think basically what I had just mentioned, and it is the balance of, we all have a home, and I've been blessed with a home. I've worked very hard for this home, and that's one of the reasons I'm extremely frustrated with and angry with the judges who are proclaiming that the Indians have these land rights, and it's like, no way this is going to happen. These are frustrations to me, and that's where it's like we got to pick our battles, but we don't have enough lawyers to get on the front line here and have the wherewithal to sometimes structure these legal battles in that way. And so, as you mentioned, like, I just want to go out and do some gardening again. It was like my happy place to be out there gardening, and so I still get out there and cut my lawn and have to rake the leaves, and sometimes that is like literally by the lights of my house, or cleaning my house and getting what these simple things could be. My mom, as I mentioned, is 85, and she usually has the grocery list and gets the groceries, and so we do a balance and a juggle throughout everybody in the household, and just making sure. So
Is there
yeah,
something is there something that you miss most about your old life?
being able to do those things and then get together with friends. I haven't had a vacation in forever, and I think that, I do look forward to that one day, a well-deserved vacation.
Mhm.
That makes me a little bit emotional right now, because I think one of the biggest things that of the sacrificing of time, and I don't let it stop me, but it's not to the degree that I would want, is building that relationship with my grandkids. And I'm Nana, and my grandson and the other one is just 2 months old, and just seeing him develop. But the other one and we've got a very extremely special relationship, and that comes with investment. And I know that, and I want to be able, to instill in his life all of those values that we need for strong leadership in the country. Um, Being able to make it to church on Sunday. I sometimes get up in the morning and I'm so exhausted on a Sunday, but I love the fellowship. And so I make sure that I go. And so those are some of the things that, I would like, and not having the amount of stress level uh, consistently on our plate every day. And that's why I don't know how people do it who aren't Christians,
Mhm.
because when I wake up every morning, I absolutely pray, and I put the armor of God on, the helmet of salvation and the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth and the shoes of peace, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and to carry the shield of faith. And so I know that when I'm really frustrated, I'm down moments, I can call up the team members and I say, yeah, can you pray for me today? Or for them with us. We carry this load, and prayer really changes things. And it's a reset. And I always say, Lord, give me the fire in my belly. You know what? Give me the fire in my belly every day. And there's a couple of times where that fire was just dim and I was feeling it. And then the Lord will say, I want you to just rest for a day. And then boom, that fire comes back just faithfully the next day, and I'm up and running again. And so, I appreciate everybody's prayers That's where the shift and the changes is coming to change the hearts and minds of people, but it also helps everybody. And it's not just Action for Canada. There's other amazing leaders out there who are doing good work and fighting a good fight. And yeah. So those are some of the things that, maybe people would not understand or know that goes on the background. It's not just with me, it's with other team members. We have several team members that have been diagnosed with cancers. And not only are those key people in key positions that are helping this little Gideon's army, keeping this ship afloat and going, but these people have become family, people that we love very, very dearly. And so those are other things, that happen. And then when there's attacks from without, but if they come from within, it's not attacks, but some of our chapter leaders have gotten worn out. And so we're looking for new chapter leaders where we're so incredibly grateful for the years that they stayed with Action for Canada. But it's hard to replace because so many people are not making the time to get on the front line and battle with us. But God continues to bless us, and that's what our team counts on.
Well, it takes me back to, I think it would be amiss if we didn't go into a certain area, and it was something that we went through together. And that was when COVID hit. Like I said, you were such a beacon of light for so many people, and you had a ton of support. People believed in your mission, they donated, the legal action started to take flight, and then something changed. People that once supported you started to lend their ear to some bad apples in the movement, which created a lot of misconceptions, I think, about you and your legal counsel. And it was almost like a bit of a witch hunt to knock both you and Rocco off your game, I think. And you were criticized, you were slandered, attacked. And funny enough, many of those voices have now disappeared or fled or quietly backed away. And like you said, a lot of people don't humble themselves to apologize, even when they start to see this themselves. But you're still here and you never left and you never stopped fighting, and your lawsuit is still active in the courts. So I want to give you the space just to speak from your heart about how all that affected you, and also give you the chance to clear up any misconceptions that people might still think about you and your work.
Yeah, I think in the one part of it hurt because I'm such a woman of integrity and I'm uncompromising, and the fact that somebody would have a smear campaign out there about me, at first it was a bit of a sting, but I think, Danielle, the bottom line is that it made me more frustrated that people could be so ignorant as to spread the lies, not because of how it affected me, but because they were deceiving others and causing further division and strife at a time that we needed to be focused on working together as a united front. And as if people weren't going through enough by, it's like, oh, you got to wear a mask, you got to take this test, you're going to lose your job, stand 6 feet apart. And it was all based on complete and utter fraud and misinformation. And so you've got people on the front line like Rocco and myself who were fighting ferociously and trying to bring hope and trying to facilitate Canadians to stand in their rights. And you had somebody foolishly coming alongside you and trying to undermine the work that we were doing. And so I was also upset that I had put everything on the line when I took this case on and retained Rocco. It was a big, big deal to raise the funds that were necessary to do a constitutional challenge. Like, I'm that person that grew up that was very meticulous with my funds. My brother and sister, when we were younger, we got an allowance, and if they needed to borrow money from me, right? It's kind of funny to think about, but that followed me into my adulthood. I've been very, very responsible with my finances, and I made that decision that when I launched Action for Canada, that I was going to treat the funds, these precious funds that are coming in from Canadians, like as if that was my own. And so for them to be maligning Rocco and myself and stupid things that juvenile things that they would say, it frustrated me. And, for that matter, but of course, we needed to raise these funds in order to commence, and they were all in line with the costs of constitutional challenge because I had gone to other lawyers and it was all in line, the cost that Rocco had charged with everybody else, with other lawyers. And so, in spite of them, we raised the funds, as you know, and because of your incredible help, like we were, out to every single rally, as I say, in rain and sleet and snow and all the rest of it. And in those first months, I had to raise half the funds, and we managed to do that from September 2020 to December 2020, because Rocco wouldn't proceed. Because if you couldn't raise the funds, like how do you plan on, proceeding with this? And so in spite of them, we raised the funds, and I just, I refused to respond to the attacks on social media. It was a distraction as far as I was concerned, and I needed to remain focused on the battle. And really, I didn't have time to respond to people who were acting like a bunch of childhood delinquents in those, the mean schools, the mean kids at in junior high school. That's where I say before, like I really had to keep a proper perspective on things. And A4C,
On.
yeah, we stood the test of time, and I think that my character and that of our team have come out on the other side with our reputations intact. And so I'm really happy about
How
where
did that affect
where
your
we are
fund-
at right now.
How did
Mhm.
that affect your fundraising though, Tanya, with all of that that went
Oh,
on? I mean, you can personally take the weight of that. Like I know you took a lot on the chin, but how did that affect Action for Canada?
well, yeah, it did. It's really affected Rocco and his firm, of course, because he's taken on so many, and he's still got the government, is it the healthcare workers, and he did an appeal recently, and everybody was blown away by how he had conducted himself in court, and so it's going to be pretty hard for these three appeal court judges, and apparently one he had known way back, I think, when he was going to school. So it will be based on corruption, I believe, if he ends up losing that case. But when I was going through that, yeah, the fundraising super super slowed down, but within a year, exactly a year to the date, we had raised all the funds necessary in spite of these wicked people. And there was some times when it, because of what that individual is doing, and I'm not even going to acknowledge his name right now because he was obviously, possibly a government operative, maybe paid out, or just so filled with arrogance and pride. I don't know, what fueled these people, but either way, it was destructive. And yeah, they're nowhere to be found now. And they were raising lots of money. And the one guy was, flying on airplanes back and forth across Canada, and everybody's
Nobody else
dying,
could.
selling his t-shirts and really doing literally nothing to help Canadians in the long run. And so it was hard going through that season. And there were people that were demanding their funds back from me because these individuals had convinced them that Rocco wasn't doing his job. And when we look at the courts and see even what they're doing right now in trying to delay us from getting in just simply to address the motion to strike, we had a date for October 20th of this year. And next thing you know, the lawyers are on strike. Well, how convenient is that? And then the strike lifted days before we were supposed to be in court. And now we're trying to get a court date and they said, oh, the court said you got to call by November 12th to set a date for January. Rocco gets in contact with him. And so, oh, no dates available. And so then next thing you know, now we have to wait for December 12th in order to set a date for February. And so how could the public possibly criticize us? And, yeah, they want to criticize, Rocco for having a 391-page statement of claim. Fill your boots. But if you're not happy with it, then don't support us. If you are, then just have the peace of mind to know that we're fighting as hard as we can against very, very corrupt, evil, murderous individuals that, even the COVID jab that continues to maim and kill people, including children, to this day. And they're still in BC. I don't know if in other provinces, but BC is still promoting the COVID jabs. And so what do they expect? That we're going to just walk into court first time and be able to win that case? No, they're going to put up as many blocks as possible, and that's what they did. And so yeah, it was very difficult and upsetting going through that season because I knew without a shadow of a doubt in my mind the character of Rocco and how hard he was fighting and how hard our team were fighting, as well as providing the notices of liability, which kept 45,000 teachers and school staff working in BC and had the same effect in Alberta and in other provinces. So shame on them. That's all I can say. That's all I can
And
say.
that's another curtain we could pull back on another day, but it's like all the extras and the over and above that Rocco did that people don't even know
Oh,
about.
yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
lot that he threw in that, wasn't even part of, the funds that were raised and whatnot.
No, and to know too that he has twin boys, and to know that the one boy is vaccine injured, or I don't even want to call it a vaccine. That was the childhood immunization. So he was already working with Ted Kuntz from Vaccine Choice Canada in 2019, if not before then, to shed light on the fact that these immunizations are harmful. And when I was talking to Rocco recently, he put things again into a proper perspective that prior to all of this COVID fraud and this bio weapon that they implemented on the mass populations, is that vaccine hesitancy, so-called vaccine hesitancy, like was 1 or 2%. And now CBC was reporting that there's like a 75% of people support vaccinations. Well, that means then that now vaccine hesitancy has risen to 30%. And that is a huge win-win. It's a huge win for our children. It's all the less children that are going to be diagnosed with autism, which we know 100% is tied to childhood immunizations or whatever, you want to call these shots. They're definitely not for the benefit of our children. So we're winning, even though we're not in court yet. And so
Yeah.
that's worth
Well,
repeating.
Rocco definitely had skin in the game, and I think that's probably
Absolutely.
something a lot of people
Yep.
didn't know. Can I ask how much money you've raised this year so far and what your expenses have been this year?
Oh, yeah. So between all of the different costs to keep these cases going, because we had appeal costs uh, on the COVID case, and then of course this new case with Tyson Cook came up, and so in total for that, we've spent $40,000, and one of that 20 of that was to put forward our SLAP application in September, and so $70,000 in total so far this year.
So you're out a little bit of money, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I would say that we've raised somewhere around $25,000 when I've put out those appeals. I'm a bit confused by this, Danielle. I know there was this whole ostrich fiasco that took place, and I ended up hearing that a business owner had given them $100,000, and we've never had anything like that in all the years that we've been operating. And to have a business owner drop $100,000 on Action for Canada would be a very, very welcome event. And because, we're doing so much more. We're
Yeah.
doing so much more, I would have to say, than any other organization.
Lot more rods in the fire for sure.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of people, when they donate, if they do e-transfer or Stripe, it's not, they can't necessarily designate saying this is for the legal action. So we would just take it that we would see a boost in giving. And then we've also seen overall that giving has slowed. That could be because of the economy or because the noose is not quite as tight right now around people's necks. Yet it is, and it has been their strategy: bring COVID on, and then put the restrictions in place, loosen the restrictions, put more restrictions in place. This is a game, this mental psyop that they have been administering against all of the citizens of Canada. And right now, the noose is very tight. They're flooding us with mass immigration, impoverishing our nation, trying to take away our guns, bringing in, we are a hotbed for terrorism. And yet they think now is the time that maybe they could stop giving that $10 or $20 a month to Action for Canada. And we continue whether we're receiving those funds or not. And so I would really like to emphasize, please consider not only donating. It's the end of the year. We're not a charitable organization. organization, although we are now pursuing that. I've had a wonderful gentleman who has said, I'd like to help you become a charitable organization if we will qualify. And so we're looking at doing that. But many business owners want to get that exemption. Many people want to get that tax exemption at the end of the year. And it's like, what is your freedom worth right now?
Yeah.
If you were going to give $10,000 to Action for Canada as a business, I'd be happy if you kept 3 and gave us 7. Whatever it's going to take to help facilitate all of these hardworking people on our team, even if we could give somebody on our team that they $250 a month to keep up and do the hard work that they're doing in our community to save this country, I think that that is extremely valid.
That's what I said, like at the beginning of this was, why I got emotional is because I think about, the people who had lost their jobs and or were on the brink of losing their jobs, and they flooded the stage with their spare change and everything they had because they knew that their freedom was so much more important than the pennies in their
Yeah.
pocket. And that was why you gave them so much hope, Tanya, because it was, what else were we going to do? And
Yeah.
I think people have become complacent now. And
Yeah.
it's, if we choose complacency over freedom, we're never going to win this. And certainly one person can't take this on their shoulders.
No.
So why do you continue to do what you do, and what drives you to keep going when things get hard?
Well, yeah, I would, uh, Hmm. Well, there again, I would have to say, Danielle, it's because we are at war, and it is a very untraditional war. There are others. Hitler, Hitler commenced his war against the people this way with a psyop. He targeted a group of people, and he commenced a type of war that eventually countries around the world felt that they had to participate in. But this war isn't the one where we've got bombs dropping around us. The bombs are different. We've got our children are absolutely, their lives are being destroyed. The fact that they're taking their own lives because they have been convinced that they were born in the wrong body, for instance, and these radical activists are trying to say to parents, do you want a dead daughter or a live son? In other words, if their daughter wants to identify as a boy, that they should support this lunacy and this delusion. And then in the end, the kids go through the puberty blockers, which does havoc on their emotions and their system, which puts them into depression. So they have to have antidepressants in order to keep these kids in this state of delusion. And then when these kids now have had their body mutilated or have been sterilized or grown a beard as a girl, and now they're an adult, realizing that they've been had. And those individuals are then so depressed that they're taking their own lives. So this is the kind of war we're facing. We're facing the war that, there was a mass forced abortion, I'm going to say, where young mothers during COVID were convinced to take this jab only to find out that they had miscarriages en masse. And of course that was population control as well. And we've got, I was watching a show last night that I like to, sorry, that's my dog. She sits by me. That's another one I get support from, is my big girl here. Is a show where they all of a sudden they were sneaking in how these kids, were in, it was a show about hospital workers and trying to normalize youth having heart problems. That's what Hollywood is doing. It isn't normal for kids to have heart problems. That is because of this bioweapon that they used against them. And so many people dying. That's the war. And this is why Action for Canada has remained on the front line. And so that what I looked at, I said, we're at war. I've got children and grandchildren, and I don't know what more to say. We can't stop until the tyrants and traitors are removed and held to account.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop either. What would you want people to remember you for?
Hmm.
Okay.
I think hmm, I think it would be for proclaiming that Canada is a Christian nation and that they would understand how critically important it is to our freedoms and democracy, and to pass that gift on to the next generation so that this doesn't happen again. If we cared about the elected officials, if they were men of honor and men of God, and that it wasn't just by word, but it was how they conduct their life. If people actually cared about the character of the people that running for office, if the church would rise up and from within the church support good godly leaders, men and women, to run for office, we would have never been in this position. We would have never allowed businesses across the nation to open on Sundays. We would have had that true day of rest. We wouldn't have allowed prayer to be removed from school. We would have remained, opening the school day with prayer, the Lord's Prayer. We would not have removed prayer from government. They used to, pray before the legislature began. And so, yeah, I guess that would be it.
Well, it's funny because I think you just answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, is that if everything you're fighting for became reality tomorrow, what would Canada look like? But I think you just described it.
It would. Yeah, that God would once again guide government, and that prayer and biblical teaching would return to the education system so that we had strong future leaders.
Yeah. Now, my last question, Tanya, is that I know that you've built this amazing family support network around you with your team. And is there anything that you would like to address with them?
Oh, to my team.
Mhm.
Well, just to recall that from 2015 to 2019, I was literally a one-person show through my own emails, just putting out these call to action campaigns and desperately trying to alert Canadians of all the corruption and what was coming. And so just that I love them from the bottom of my heart, that this army has risen, across the nation, that we formed this core team, that the chapter leaders have risen up, that our volunteers across Canada, are participating. And so I could have never achieved any of this on my own. And they're like family to me, and I'm proud of them. And they're all using their God-given gifts and talents, and they're going above and beyond in every way. And even wearing different hats than we need to, like when to pick up the slack, or when somebody is sick and can no longer be with the team. It's as I said before, it's a small Gideon's army. I've said Action for Canada is God breathed, and we're achieving all of these great things because God is with us. And I just literally know I've prayed over the years, and I continue to pray. We're going to be launching our chapter mission again at the beginning of January 2026. And we are praying for God to speak to people, to join Action for Canada, and to lead with us. And so we look forward to building our family. But to them, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Tanya, you are one special lady, and your team, I'm just, gratitude is just not even a strong enough word to express for everything that you and your team do. And I want to thank you for allowing me to do this with you today. And see, it wasn't so bad. I think it's important for people to be able to see the heartbeat behind the mission. So I'm really thank you for opening up and being vulnerable with us today. And you honestly define leadership and what it means to be a true patriot. And so thank you for standing in the gap for all of us and never giving up. And
Well,
I will go ahead and say something, and something else I wanted to say to everybody else who was listening.
you go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that tonight wasn't just a look back on what's been done. It was a reminder of what can still be achieved when ordinary people choose to do extraordinary things, Tanya. Every moment, every movement in history started with a few people who refused to stay silent and who refused to run. And I just want to say to everyone who's watching, if Tanya has ever stood up for something that you cared about, if her courage has inspired you, and if you believe that the work must continue, then I want to ask you to consider standing beside her tonight, to help fuel these missions. Not next week and not someday, tonight. The future of this country is all of our responsibility. Complacency is our worst enemy, as I said before. There are three ways that anybody can get involved, and that is time, talent, and treasure. And Action for Canada has the ability to rally Canadians across the country, but we need more volunteers to push back in their own towns and municipalities. There's so much work that needs to be done. And when we all share the load, we can move mountains. So if you've been thinking about getting involved but weren't sure where to start, just know this. Tanya and her team provide all the tools and guidance to help you make an impact right in your own corner of the world, with chapters in so many communities across the country, but they still need more. So when it comes to talent, maybe you're a connector, an influencer, or you have a skill set that could help the team. God gave you gifts not to keep to yourself, but to share with others. So please reach out or just start sharing and getting the word out about the work that is taking place. Never underestimate the power of your voice. You can start by sharing this video too. Maybe we can find one of those big business tycoon investors to help you out, Tanya. And then lastly, we know that times are getting tight right now. The cost of groceries and fuel and taxes is almost at a hand. Yet the fate of millions of people is resting on the shoulders of just a select few. Action for Canada needs our help now. And whether you can give $5, $50, or $500, every contribution strengthens these battles and keeps the mission alive. Think back to September 2020 on the steps of the art gallery in Vancouver. Many people had already lost their jobs or feared that they would, but there was a spirit of generosity and unity that brought hope. And that hope came from collective action. Tanya stepping forward to share her vision, the first person running up on the stairs to donate that $100, which sparked a wave of support that has inspired so many others. So what Tanya and Action for Canada team are taking on right now is much like David taking on Goliath, as you said before. One small boy armed with courage, faith, and a single stone that brought down a giant. And that giant today is the government. The battles ahead are immense, but as my friend once said, Alicia, she said, when we all come together, there is no stopping us. So please consider sending a donation, reaching out to volunteer, and also sharing this interview for all to see. Tanya, is there anything that you want to sign off with before we go?
Well, Danielle, one, to thank you so much. You had to convince me to do this interview tonight because I was nervous about it. I don't like being in the spotlight on this side. I like asking the questions and doing actions. And it was time to get real tonight. And I just thank you for your friendship and your support. And I just thank God for all of these wonderful connections that have been made, and these new friendships that have grown out of the ashes. And I just look forward to all the work ahead and where we're going to go from here, and where we'll be next December. We might do this again next December. We'll see. And so thank you everybody for joining us. In closing, I am going to just go to mention who our next week guest is. It's going to be another ferocious warrior as well, our good friend Barry Neufeld. He's been through the ringer, and he had his final court date on Monday, and we're going to hear his story. And the title I've given it is A Warrior's Call to Men, and we need everybody to rise up. And then our scriptures for tonight, I think are very appropriate from from John 3:16. When I said I was reading the Bible as a little girl, this is the first verse that I memorized. And it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." And then the next verse builds on this, and it's John 16:33. It says, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And as I said, that is what fuels me. I don't have to be concerned, and because I know that God is with me. And the next verse is from 1 John 4:4. Greater is he that is in me than he who is in this world. And that again is one that gives me great courage and power, because I am walking in Christ Jesus. He is with me. And then the very last one is one of my favorite. I have repeatedly said this from Galatians 6:9. And in closing, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And so I thank all of you for your support for Action for Canada. Bring Danielle back on with me. And I just thank all of you for your support and your ongoing support, and, sharing our information, and to social media, your financial support and your prayers. And I pray that you have an amazing holiday season as we come up, and we're all going to be taking a break, and that you'll be ready to get right back with us in 2026 as we launch the chapters and a new season of actions as we fight to overturn the corruption, and as we fight to elevate God once again in this country. So Danielle, thank you so much, my friend. And to all of you, God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Thank you, Tanya, for everything you do.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
I'm gonna thank our founding father
with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I